Hello and welcome to Next to Nothing Podcast. We are joined today by Derrick from How Not to DM. And we have a back-to-back tabletop episode. We break down cost-effective D&D, what to look forward to with Spelljammer, and more on Next to Nothing. Roll the intro. If I can find the button. Aha.
Push the button, green, please push the button.
I'm pushing it. It's pushed.
We're professionals.
Are we? Are we professionals?
No, not even close. Not
Hello.
even remotely close.
Hello and welcome to Next to Nothing. I am your host, not Danny K. Danny is actually gone in Seattle, having a good old time with his real girlfriend, quote unquote, real girlfriend. So yeah, I am the captain now. Your humble host, Mr. Greenlee. With me as always. And Danny always does like a beard pun. So we'll do brazenly bold bearded Mendachi. How you doing, Mendachi?
You know, I'm feeling both brazen, less raisin, kind of bold, but fairly old. I'm doing great. Hanging out with yet again one of my heroes from the TTRPG space, Derrick, teaching me how to not be a dummy in my day-to-day life as well as my tabletopping life. Yeah, this guy right here.
I can't guarantee that any of my advice works in real life, but it does work in D&D. Oh yeah.
And of course,
thanks for having me.
As Mendachi said, we are joined by the wonderful guest Derrick from How Not to DM. For Derrick, for anyone who doesn't know you, who are you? What do you do? And where can people find you?
I'm the one with the boring name on this show today. We've got Mendachi, who to Google because this is Latin, but I don't know what it means, and Mr. Green, who's elite. So it's just me, Derrick. I have a show called How Not to DM. I started it in April of last year. Basically, the premise of the show is interviewing dungeon masters from around the web. Most of them I am a fan of, or have consumed their work before, and so decided to try to get them to sit down with me and talk about what makes them tick, what stuff they feel like they've done in their games that could be labeled as mistakes that I might learn from, and the rest of my listeners might learn from, and then talk about their cool projects, their streams, their podcasts, the games they've written, the music they've made, whatever else. So I talk to people who all sorts of different. So yeah, that's the premise of the show. It's been a ton of fun, and every once in a while I get to do stuff like this where I hop on to other shows and chat more about it. So always happy to chat D&D and tabletops. Yeah, like I said, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on. Mendachi was absolutely 100% stoked that you were willing to come on and talk to us today. So,
Oh yeah, man, made my month. I'm just checking off the list. I got Derrick. I got Cuppy Cup of Ain't Slayed Nobody. I got Thirsty. Man, like there's not too many people left. Like I'm just Steve Buscemi and just like putting on the lipstick and just crossing names off.
That's an excellent reference.
Yeah,
Thirsty was great last week.
He's just sitting there rubbing his
fun.
hands together, waiting for Mercer to get a hold of him. Just like, yes, I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Almost at the collection. Thank you for watching and listening to the show. If you miss any part of the show, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found. If you want to join us live, you can find us on Twitch every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you want to be a part of the show, you can answer the question of the week. This week's question of the week is, what is your favorite tabletop monster or villain? What is your favorite tabletop RPG monster or villain? Mendachi, what's your favorite villain? What do you got?
Yeah, I knew right away, you see, as I've been playing first edition Pathfinder for 13 years. And when I found the beehole in my bestiary all those years ago, the CR-17 beehole, a titanic worm that heaves its endless bulk into the air, raising a bleached end as if ready to strike with a massive set of hooked jaws. Yes, the beehole with the breath weapon of 900-foot range that could stun you for 1d4 rounds, a DC 29 reflex save, or be entangled by its slime for up to 12 hours. Yes, the beehole, immune to magic control and has overwhelming strength. By all accounts, they live incredibly long-lived lives. Those that exist in remote worlds or on other dimensions have done so for countless aeons. The beehole themselves seem to have no interest in their history, perhaps as a result of their limited intellect. But by all accounts, a beehole can live forever, barring death by violence. For a creature as immense and dangerous as a beehole, such conditions essentially amount to immortality.
Well, okay.
You didn't make that up, right?
No,
I'm
you
assuming-
you can find that. You can find it.
I'm assuming that's ripped
Oh,
right
man.
from a lore page.
Yes, actually.
That thorough.
Were
Yes.
you reading it, or were you speaking, just coming up with it?
That is actually written in the bestiary page for the beehole, not to be confused with its cousin monster, the D-hole.
I was thinking the A-hole, but D-hole.
Yes. Yeah. They both exist. Apparently, they're actually Lovecraftian creatures, but yeah. I mean, what's not to love about a bleached beehole?
I don't remember this in any of the Lovecraft I've read. I'll have to reread it.
Yeah.
I'll
even drop it for chat.
I do have some
please do.
concerns. But Derrick, what is your favorite TTRPG monster or villain?
I'm gonna go with tried and true one that I've on in the past when people question, because I struggle with favorites. So I'm gonna say my favorite is the Shambling Mound, found in the Monsters Manual. I love the Shambling Mound because what's not to like about a giant plant that is alive, grab you with its vines and deal a bunch of bludgeoning damage to you while you're inside of it. So love that one because I love putting stuff in my world that characters will not suspect. So you see a big tangle of vines and you walk past it. I don't know. I just like the gotcha moments. Don't try to do this all the time, obviously, but it's just fun to catch people unaware and bludgeon them with plants every once in a while. So that's what I'm going to say is my
Solid.
Wonderful, solid. I would have to say, because I am relatively new to TTRPGs, specifically Dungeons and Dragons, I would have to say the Beholder. Because it's the one thing that I've always associated with D&D. It's everywhere. In on the book, the player's hand guide, I believe it's on there.
That one's got the frost giant or storm giant.
Is it?
Can't remember which one.
One of the
but
books
on the
has
monster manual.
Is it on the monster manual? Okay. So yeah, it's just that iconic monster that I always immediately associate with D&D.
Definitely, it was invented, by people who are playing the game. So that makes it that much more authentic, I guess you could say. It's like a D&D experience to fight one, right? So, choice.
Yeah, every player has it on their bingo card. You haven't truly played until you fought a beholder.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into the real meat of the show, and that is Dungeons and Dragons on a budget. The media has been eating up D&D in recent years with Stranger Things on Netflix and Legends of Vox Machina, for example. So we wanted to talk about how affordable it can really be. Derrick, you have had, I would definitely say, some experience with D&D. When did you start and fall in love with DMing and playing D&D?
Yeah, good question. So, I was initially invited by some coworkers to play in a Curse of Strahd game, but only lasted 3 sessions before it fell apart, and that is also on the D&D card of experiences when you are playing tabletop games. The game and play again. So after that, there were a couple of coworkers in that group, and then the rest of it was kind of external people. So we started playing at lunch, so that we could keep a normal game going. We started a Lost Mine of Phandelver game. So my brother was working with us at that time, and he ran that game for us. And while he was doing it, I was like, oh, I could totally do this DMing thing, right? He was just, he was reading from the book and running it by the book. And I thought, I could totally write my own adventures. Like, how hard could this be? I started writing a bunch of stuff in a Google Doc, a bunch of ideas. As soon as we finished The Lost Mine, I said, all right, now you're going to travel further south down the coast, and this stuff is going to happen. And so I've been running games ever since. So yeah, I think those times I really kind of fell in love with it, though. We only played in hour sessions during lunch. So it was kind of small, bite-sized, like 2 times a week playing. But that's really where I fell in love with it.
Awesome.
That's nice. That's wholesome. It's just D&D and food going hand in hand.
Microwave pasta and a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, hell yeah.
So what do you believe is the bare minimum to start playing D&D?
Honestly, it had nothing between us. I had maybe like 2 or 3 sets of dice, and there were like 8 of us playing at one point. Too many people for a beginning game, by the way. I don't recommend that. But yeah, I don't think you need much. I feel like a brand new set of players are going to want character sheets that they can look at and understand, and that can be pieces of paper you've printed, or it could be online. I think D&D is simple. D&D Beyond is free as well, so I feel like you need easy to understand character sheets. And if you are running the game, I would suggest you buy something to run like Lost Mine of Phandelver, but it's really cheap for less than $20 most places. And that includes the basic rules as well in a booklet, and that's like really okay, and that's totally all you need. I think the best way to learn how to run games is by watching and listening to other people do it, and you kind of pick up from their styles and decide what you want to include from what they do and what you want to do differently. And again, that's all free too. Like, unless you're paying to watch games and stuff like that. It's really cheap to get started. So that's probably the initial investment I would make, is buy a starter kit. Just released a new one. I think it's like Dragons of Stormwreck Isle or something. I haven't checked that one out yet, but a starter kit is all you need to play. And even like before that, like the basic rules are free online, and so if you want to start homebrewing from the get-go and don't want to run a published adventure, it's all free on. A great place to start.
Awesome. What are some resources that come to your mind for people who haven't made the plunge into TTRPGs but want to? Do you have any specific areas that you would recommend for, like, hey, you should go here? A YouTube video, YouTube channel, D&D and Beyond, stuff like that. Like, what do you think is your go-to?
People who I watched to learn how to run the game, I watched a ton of Matt Colville's videos. I watched a ton of Dungeon Dude videos, and a lot of Guy Sklander's How to Be a Great GM. I kind of had those like running all of the time while I was working for a few months as I was kind of getting my feet under me. And I really recommend those 3 YouTube channels as ways to learn to run the game. Also, as far as like cheap investment stuff, if you're playing in person, I would invest in a cheap map. Again, you can find like a map and 4 markers, whatever, for like less than $20 on Amazon or other sites. Dry erase kind of one. And I bought one of those to start, and I feel like that just kind of helps people think visually about what they're doing. Again, nothing wrong with Theater of the Mind, but I feel like I am good at Theater of the Mind because I've played on maps. I've thought spatially about it, and the people I play with, we've also played, with maps, and I think that kind of helps cement the Theater of the Mind people. So yeah, cheap map. Don't need any minis. or anything like that. With the dry erase markers, you just draw where you are, or you use like Lego people or board game people, whatever you've got. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's mostly about the imagination, right? Um, then there's a bunch of free ways to spice up your. So, I really enjoy adding an ambiance. I feel like that adds a layer of immersion and a layer of making the game interesting. So I recommend using tabletop audio. That's what my go-to. It's tabletopaudio.com. I'll hit the chat with that link really quick. Really easy to use. You search for different things on there, and there's a bunch of 10-minute tracks that are there, and you can set them to loop. So they're 10 minutes long, so it's not like super repetitive. And when you loop them, it'll just play over and over and over again. And I love those. Tim Roven, the guy who got the site and has made all of the tracks, he's audio engineer and a musician. Actually, was one of my guests on my show. Yeah, love tabletop audio. Huge fan, and it's free. All you need is like your phone to play it on, or your computer, or a Bluetooth speaker. There are also ways if you're playing online to hook up music, your Discord channel or Roll20 or whatever. But yeah, that's a cheap way to really add a layer of fun to your game. So that's one of the things that I really like that's free. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say, like, especially since I just started, I'm still fresh into the like the collection. I've somewhat have become like a little bit of a dice goblin. I bought a set at 2DCon in Minneapolis last year. And since then I've been looking at dice periodically. But it's definitely, I don't think it's necessary to like buy a bunch of dice. Like, I've seen a lot of people who buy, like, they'll do all the miniatures, and they'll get like setups for like the actual dungeons, like uh modular pieces that they can put together and stuff like that. And I just don't think that it's 100% necessary, especially when you're first starting out. So I think that's something to really reiterate to people who are especially new, that like you don't have to spend that hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Just get a player handbook if you want to, or use Roll20. You don't even have to buy dice if you don't want to. Like, especially if you're playing in the online area. So
Yeah, one
Lots
of
of
my
free ways.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that's actually always upset me, Derrick, you might have seen this before, Green, you as well, but there would be a meme going around. It would show this massive dungeon that someone's made on probably like a whole white fold-out table, and it's 100% Dwarven Forge and Warlock tiles. And they have the tops of the rooms covered with the black construction paper, and like you can just see that this is it's literally about, give or take, $5,000 to $6,000 of things, not counting how much the minis are that are inside, as well as if they are purchase painted or hand painted, commissioned. So it could be upwards of, like, say, worth more than your car sitting there on the table. And the caption says, "This is how you get people into Dungeons and Dragons." And it's like, no, that is how you get people to run away from it, because they think that they're going to have to buy a new car in order to have a good time. What you were saying with not needing minis and things, when I started, and this is like a total fogey moment, just an old, like, you're just a boomer millennial moment. My mini, the first mini I ever had, my full orc barbarian, Orsinus, was a Miller High Life bottle cap. Like, that's it. But that was him. I kept him, like, right on my desk. And I was like, that's how I know it's him. And, like, maybe you scratch something on it, something like that. And I used it for like about a year for that campaign, man. Just a Miller High Life bottle cap. You really don't need much. Um,
It's true.
something else you can use. There's bots on Discord. You can type in slash commands and you can run a whole game that way if you'd like. There's so many different ways that you can do it for cheap. But yeah, custom stuff is cool and the expensive stuff is cool. But man, if I owned an entire car's worth of walls and floors, um, I'd have to do some mental acrobatics for myself to just be like, all right, man, are you all in or like, when's it gonna
thing
stop?
that kills me too is like you have to spend time setting it all up, and that's so much time
Mm-hmm.
from a prep standpoint. Like I can just draw a few lines on some graph paper, and that's a dungeon instead of having to build one from scratch. It's a lot of time. I know on Critical Role, like just talking about all these crazy sets they built, but like much time and effort it took to build these crazy sets. Matt was saying he was spending hours and hours a week, and unless doing it full time like Matt Mercer is, I don't have time to do that all week. And so yeah, I think doing it on the cheap, honestly, that's like it's funny that you say that people were like, this is how you play D&D. Me, D&D is like cheap and hacky and like go whatever you've got together. And that's what makes it fun. Like it's all in your head anyway. Who cares?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like he's also got an entire creative team behind him too. Like if he couldn't get to the time to put something together, someone's there to, put it together and make it nice to like his specifications. And if you've got someone like that in your tabletop group, like, you know what? Good on you. I've got a guy who has a hot wire cutter and he made me some really cool looking rocks. And like that made my month, dude. And they have magnets in them, and I'm just the happiest kid in the playground right now.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, anything else on D&D on a budget or DMing on a budget, anything like that you have?
Yeah, I posted this talking about what you like. We kind of talked about like levels of how much you could spend. So let's move to the middle level and then like the expensive level. Middle
Yes.
level I feel like is splurging for some minis, maybe on Hero Forge, or maybe buying some at your local hobby store and painting or something like that. That's a lot of fun. I think a little bit of terrain is fun. I bought a bunch of at ones that I cut out myself and moved them around. They're like but they've got something on there like ships or whatever, and it's really easy to use. So I feel like that's a good mid-level spend. I also want to plug Delve Candles. This is not an ad; they're not paying me for it, but Delve Candles is a small business, and basically it's a bunch of candles you can buy that have scents that match common scenarios in tabletop games. Burn them while you're playing, and that just adds another layer of senses that you have and adds that layer of immersion. So I bought a pack from them, which was like 7 like 3-hour little mini candles for like 13 bucks or something. Kind of helped me add a bunch of different scents, and I burned like one or two here or there while we were playing. It was a ton of fun. But then they've got these big ones that you can buy that last a lot longer for lots of different. Like they've got a tavern smelling one that smells like the ocean, one that smells like forest, and tons of other ones. So yeah, check out Delve Candles if you guys are interested in like burning something while you're playing, and even if it's just you at your computer, it's kind of nice to have something to smell while you're doing it. So yeah, everyone should check that out. That's a good mid-tier kind of, still cheaper, but something fun to splurge on if you've got some cash.
They've got a candle called the Grand Archives. The scent notes are aged
Mhm.
paper, leather, and sandalwood. Why isn't it burning right now in front of me?
That's
Fabulous. I loved that one.
that is a big thing too, because like when people are talking about like immersion and trying to get into that role play thing, uh, no one ever talks about smell, like ever.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, to be honest. I would never think to, hey, I'm gonna buy this candle for this encounter that I have planned. Yeah,
That's
crazy.
cool shit.
That is
Yeah.
really cool.
It is really
I
cool.
ship that.
Yeah,
You
check
ship
it out.
it.
It's
I ship
like I
it.
said, the
I'm
small
ordering
pack
right
is
now.
pretty cheap. You should do it, and you test a bunch of different ones out. And the bag that it comes in smells really good. They send stickers and stuff. Yeah, it's a fun little package to get.
Okay.
Oh, they've got one called There and Back Again. Oh, I want to go back to Bag End.
In the feels.
Ooh.
That is amazing. So we've talked about cheap, and we've gotten into the middle of the road. What would you say is like the high end, like the creme de la creme, the Cadillac Escalade of like playing D&D and DMing D&D?
Yeah, so I'm gonna post a link in the chat for this one. Wormwood Gaming has a bunch of
Yep.
custom gaming tables you can buy. Most expensive of which is I don't remember the wood, but it's $31,000, which is incredible. But yeah, the tables are thousands of dollars. I think it's $1,000 deposit just to get your name on the list, and it's an 8-month waiting list. Then they're like 10 grand and above. They're really cool. They've got a bunch of magnetic stuff you can into the sides that hold your drinks and your dice and your laptop. They've got kind of a velvet or felt side you can flip the table to for other kinds of gaming. There's like trays along the side, and anyway, go check them out and dream with me. We were talking about it in our chat earlier about how it's basically like a car or more than a car to buy some of these
Yeah.
things, like way more than my car, $31,000.
Yeah,
So
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
absolutely.
a new Kia is like 27,000. So
That sounds
so
about
it's
right.
definitely a new car.
yeah, if you have the cash to burn, you should go check those out.
Yeah, if you're really, 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 really into Dungeons and Dragons and you have the liquid funds to do that, I mean,
Would you like me to put on my clown shoes? Because I literally had my choices made for my DM table, and I was straight up. I had everything like all the additionals, like because they have the magnetic clip-ons, they have the leaves that you can put on top, everything. I was ready. I was ready, and this was back in 2020. So like when they started rolling out their new, more budget friendly, quote unquote, budget friendly gaming tables that were modular. So like you could have them like at coffee table height, or if you wanted them at dinner table height, so on and so forth. But they ran into a bunch of problems, and I was actually watching their YouTube channel for a long time, and I've bought a lot of Wormwood stuff before, so like I can attest to the quality. It was really really sick. I've got a full scale. I think it's a 10 by 14 size. It's just a cherry with faux leather kind of rolling tray with the Dungeons and Dragons dragon on the center. I've bought my fiance a Purple Heart rolling tray and a Purple Heart dice tower for her to roll her dice down. That Christmas, I bought each person in our group something, whether that was one of their master vaults or if it was a hand turned pencil or a hand turned pen. One of our players does a lot of blueprints. He has created the entire blueprint of a tavern that the party decided to build, as well as a whole bunch of schematics for different weapons and gizmos that he's made. And so I got him a drafting pencil and stuff. And the amount of custom work that you can do on it, it's wild. But yeah, it's it's beautiful stuff. It's pipe dream stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I am a bit bougie when it comes to it. I do love it so much. But yeah, it's stuff that's gonna last you forever. I believe they call it heirloom furniture at that point. And yeah, it's definitely like, yeah, if you don't think you're gonna put down this hobby anytime soon, or if you don't think that you're going to just, hyper fixate on something else, you should definitely do that. It's pretty cool.
well, I mean, if you're genuinely enjoying what you're doing and the quality is there, it's worth every penny, right?
Oh,
It only
absolutely.
matters to you.
Take out a small loan.
A small
Yes,
loan of a
yeah, a
million
small
dollars.
small loan of $1 million. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where like every time you sit down, you look at your thing, you're like, damn, that's nice. Like you just beat the shit out of it with dice. I'm very, very careful about what I throw at it, and yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like you want your dice and you want to use them, but then when you have something that nice, you're like, am I really gonna chuck this like 3-ounce metal die across this rolling tray at this fine wood? No, probably not.
Those metal dice are killer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I also only use gemstone. I'm sounding like such a snob right now.
Is this the next to nothing podcast? I'm very confused.
I also
I'm not
have
frugal at all with this hobby at all.
I also have a set of gemstone dice. My fiance got them for Christmas for me. So like a green
Yeah,
It's a
agate.
present.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't pay for it. I was sitting there staring at them for about 3 months, like, wow, these are nice. And then then she finally was like, I'm getting them for you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. We do
So-
like a gem dye trade every anniversary. So this year I got this it's like a frost lace or a crazy lace agate set of dice, and I've just been doing nothing but using those. But that being said, what do you think as far as like cost effectiveness when it comes to dice, Derek? Is it just any dice? Is there any sort of die that you would recommend over another one?
Having only rolled a set of metal dice a handful of times, the cheapest ones I can honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I know that I have a few sets that roll higher than others, and I've actually like mathematically tested this. I'm a data analyst by day, so
Mm-hmm.
data, like if I can collect some data and determine, then I'm. So I took a few sets of dice. I rolled the 20s like 100 times the weighted average of each. Like determined which ones roll higher on average, and there's definitely one set. It's the green set that I bought for my very first character, so it's a little sad. They consistently roll very poorly for me. Like my very first roll ever was a nat 1, and I'll never forget that. And it was that set. So, but yeah, I don't have strong opinions about dice. If you got pretty ones, then great. If you want to use the ones on roll 20, those always screw me over too. But great, use whatever you want.
I know you can also get like a big 8 set on like Amazon, like of just cheap resin dice. So
I knew that was going to come up, so I threw it in the chat. If you do this, before you use any of those dice, do a saltwater test on your resin dice, because they will typically take the ones that have kind of like malforms or aberrations within the resin to throw into those poundo dice bags. So do a saltwater test. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, literally just Google dice saltwater test and see if they're balanced, because they might have a lot of bubbles in them, or they could be completely hollow in there. You never know. So if you wanna try and avert yourself from having too many nat ones in a row, see if your dice are balanced. That's also kind of one of the reasons why when someone does want to buy resin dice, like I'm always like shouting from the highest mountain I can find, saying, "Buy something clear," so that you can see that there's nothing like super crazy in there. You know what I mean? It can really mess with it. But also, yes, there are some cheaper sets from Chessex too. I've had a player accidentally do this. I took them at their word. They were a nice person. But Chessex does sell cheater dice, where they do have
Oh.
a weight, yes, on the one side of a d20, meaning that it should put that as the weight down. Now, opposite of the one is our 20 on a die. So theoretically, you should be rolling a lot of 20s with these cheater dice, but it is typically worded quite small. So yeah, just pay attention to what you're buying.
for sure.
Well, I'm gonna try this salt test. This is news to me, and
Yeah,
I will go try it right after this.
Learning new
heck
things
yeah.
today. Anything else on D&D? Specifically on a budget?
Uh, oh, I think you made a good point earlier, Mr. Green, about buying the handbook. If you're gonna buy a book, that's the book you buy. There's a new one coming out in 2 years, but I still think right now it would be useful for you. And that's the last thing I've got to say. Yeah, if you're gonna buy a book, that's the book.
Yeah, that's a hard agree on my end too. Everything else, like Derek said, and how he got into DMing after his brother ran Minds of Fandelver, you don't need anything. You can just figure out how things work by looking at the player's handbook, come up with something on the fly, and if your players end up saying like, "Hey, you're a good storyteller, but take the hint, buddy. Get a module. You can go to places that are like nice and cheap, like RPG drive through. GM's binder is also really good if you're looking for other people to do the legwork for you. But yeah,
Totally.
that player's handbook, man, like literally everything you need to know is right there. And just think about it like that. And then with D&D Beyond, one other note that I have there is obviously one of the nice things about that site is not having to buy the entire book. You can say, I just want the compendium stuff, which is usually about half off. And that compendium stuff is like, this is all of the things that we've added. Like, these are the things that you can drag and drop into scenarios or use on your character sheet. Or if you're just looking for a specific race or a specific class, buying those each for like $2 is nice. And then if you are a subscriber to their, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I think it's like $5 a month. And then whenever you jump into a friend's campaign, all the players get to share everything that you've bought. So they get access to all the content that you have for $5, which it's kind of fun. It's like digitally being able to sit down on a table and you're like, oh yeah, I've got that book, and you're just handing it out, except no one's waiting in line to make their character over the course of 6 hours. Everyone can be ready to go inside of like, an hour and a half if they know what they're doing.
Good call outs.
Awesome. Awesome. All
Hey,
right.
thanks.
All right. So we will go ahead and move on to the next topic then, and that is Spelljammer. Big exciting news. Spelljammer has officially hit the shelves today, and with that comes a whole new slew of playable characters, races, modules, and more. Derrick, what is Spelljammer, and what should we see in the new books?
Right. I say all of this having never actually played Spelljammer, so don't at me. Don't come after me. But this is my understanding. The Spelljammer according to Derrick. So, Spelljammer, originally from 1989, a supplement to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, is a campaign setting, a kind of a world setting in Dungeons and Dragons, which has just been released today in 5e. That kind of focuses on a way of playing that is in the astral sea and in wild space. And what that means is basically it's like boats traveling on the ocean, but instead you fly through space. So they used Ptolemaic concepts, which is basically like people who before humans knew what was in space. It was basically people thinking, well, maybe this is what space is like. They used concepts from Ptolemy, I think is his name, who kind of described space as like this basically ocean filled with some sort of fluid, and basically there's all these spheres that exist in this fluid, and all of the worlds and planets and everything are inside these spheres. And then to travel through, you kind of have to break out of these spheres, travel through this liquid, whatever it is, and then get to another sphere to kind of Spelljammer. Basically, they took those concepts and they said it would be really cool if it was like, flying these ships through space and being able to travel across all of these different campaign settings we've already built, and a way to travel and visit all these different worlds, or maybe have crazy adventures out in space that you wouldn't otherwise have. So I'm combining elements of high fantasy and elements of sci-fi, but it's still very much sword and sorcery. Like the ships look like pirate ships or kind of animals and that kind of thing. It's not like spaceships. It's not lasers. There's not robots as such, but there's tons of different races that live out there, and tons of different worlds they've created that are above and beyond maybe what you're used to in the Forgotten Realms, which is where most of D&D's campaigns have been set thus far in 5e. So yeah, that's like crash course into Spelljammer. I'm really excited to try it out because I've heard a lot of good things about it. But yeah, like you said, Mr. Green, today they released 3 64-page books and a poster and a new Dungeon Master's screen for anybody who's interested in running it, which includes a bunch of new tools, a bunch of new creatures, new races, And like I said, rules for the ship combat, because inevitably when you're flying these crazy ships through wild space, you're going to be encountering other people and you're going to have to fight them. There's a bunch of rules about how the physics work out in this wild space too, because it's different than what we understand now. But yeah, that's what Spelljammer is.
I do have to say I'm excited for two things and two things alone. Treasure Planet,
Hmm.
and I want to make a character that is that time I got reincarnated as a slime, because
Oh yeah,
slimes are now a character. Oh, and Hippo
yeah.
Man.
They are.
You can't forget the
Plasmoid.
Hippo Man.
That's true.
And clowns and
Fucking space clowns. God, fuck.
It's becoming
many
terrifying now.
yeah. Well, it honestly, like, people's games get weird anyway, but this is like license to get as weird as you can imagine, right? You mentioned Treasure Planet. I kind of asked my Twitter followers earlier today you would base your Spelljammer campaign off of, and had all sorts of answers like, um, I'll pull it up. Why not? And we can kind of go through them. But yeah, Treasure Planet's a great call out because I think a lot of people are at least familiar with it, and I think it's a really underrated Disney movie based off of Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island that combines a lot of the elements that Spelljammer definitely does well.
Yeah, that's what when I saw the preview for Spelljammers back in the D&D Direct, I think is what they called it.
Mhm.
That's the
Yep.
first thing that came to my mind was Treasure Planet.
That's a pretty apt comparison, honestly. It's kind of a hard one for like some folks. Just like I want you to think of Star Wars, but like nothing that makes Star Wars, and instead I want you to think about like high fantasy shit. Like I want an elvish wizard in a high tower, but the tower is floating through space and it has cannons, and you're on a spaceship that is also just a wooden pirate ship, and you're trying to climb the tower in the middle of space while there's astral whales around you. Like it's crazy. Yeah, like the amount of things that you can just do here are really 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 cool. I'm really glad to see that they have come back to this idea, since it was kind of like something that was a very old idea. It kind of seemed like it was going to stay there for quite some time. Like we only saw a little bit of it here and there in like Unearthed Arcana, and I guess that was more of like a little hint or a teaser.
It
Awesome.
totally was, and they've been teasing it for a while, right? And did a bait and switch on April Fool's Day,
Hmm.
and then actually announced it a few months later. So pretty funny.
Yeah, assholes.
Mostly it'd be fun though. So
Yeah.
yeah, Treasure Planet is one that people mentioned. I had people talk about just like the world of Alien. That would be cool to do kind of a horror themed one with these strange things that burst out of people's chests. Why not? Universe. I've never watched it, but I'm familiar with it at least, and I'm sure you heard fun stuff with that. Titan AE.
Oh,
Another, I
yeah.
feel like, kind of forgotten, underrated animated feature from back in the day. I feel like that was in either like '99 or 2001.
I think it
Anyway,
was I think it was post 2001, and now all I can think of is like doing a Spelljammers campaign, but with like to the background of like Creed's greatest hits.
2000,
Okay.
June 16th, 2000.
Oh, 2000 exact. Okay.
2000. Yeah, I was off. Guardians of the Galaxy. A lot of people mentioned that, or Thor. I think that's a great way because Thor is very much like a kind of fantasy character, but being able to travel through all or to all of these different realms, via the Bifrost and kind of the weird stuff that they've done with the movies, I think is great inspiration for what you could do, Jamer.
Yeah, that's really good. And, like they use like the kind of like Viking longboats. Seeing the spaceships in those Thor movies, it's just like, yeah, this is very Spelljammer. It's really good.
Yeah, you could definitely do a Spelljammers bringing a lot of possibility to the homebrew area, I think.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
You can travel to any weird place that has anything there, right? Like now that the cosmos are open to you, what do you want to do? Some people were mentioning Star Trek. If you've ever watched the original series or Next Generation, like every episode is just super weird. A bunch of weird stuff happens, and they go weird places and then with weird people. And I think you could rip a ton of like side quests and stuff off of them.
Oh, and then
stuff like that.
William Shatner tries to sleep with a girl. So
Yes,
go
but
to
she's
weird
blue.
places. This one's blue. This one's pink. Shatner is getting it in.
Yes. How many tentacles? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the possibilities are really endless.
Tentacles don't matter to Captain Kirk, okay?
10 tickles, tentacles, tentacles, 10 tickles, tickles. Something else that I actually dropped as well, because I think that you said something about listening to Queen's greatest hits, or was that just my brain making that up?
No, Creed. We were talking
Creed.
about
Oh,
Titan
God.
AE.
Oh,
It was a
God. That's
Creed
right.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
it was like
was. Okay.
Creed was like the
It's about
soundtrack to
Queen,
Titan
though.
AE. But Queen, yeah, what do you have in mind for Queen? Because Queen fits the bill too. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the technical everything. So, the guitarist and lead songwriter of an old, I'd say old, it just dates me. It's fine. He is an emo songwriter as well as kind of like folk music from the band Decemberists. He is a huge D&D nerd, along with like Reggie Watts and a whole bunch of other folks that you may or may
Yeah.
not recognize. They got together and literally today released an entire album that is an official album specifically for Spelljammer. And there are songs in there that are actually supposed to go with different events and different modules. So I've linked that in the chat. For those of you that aren't with us live, you can go on Spotify and just look up Spelljams in Spotify. You'll know it's the right album because it literally has a dread nautilus coming out of a portal across an abyssal plane, and it says D&D Spell Jams, bottom left-hand corner, Dungeons and Dragons watermark right there. Various artists, 19 songs. So yeah, you can
That's
check that shit
fantastic.
out. Yeah, dude, it looks awesome. From anyone between Shabazz Palaces to people like Penny and Sparrow, and of course Reggie Watts, Magic Sword. It, so many different voices, so many different genres coming together to make an album for Spelljammer is also aptly very Spelljammer.
I'm assuming then that goes with one of the books. So there are 3 books that got released. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is Astral Adventures Guide, so all of the rules, the new races, that kind of thing. Second one is Boo's Astral Menagerie, which is all of the new monsters. And then there's Light of Xerixis, which is an adventure for levels 5 to 8. I'm assuming that it's probably matching up with that, but I could be wrong. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just supposed to match up like all of the different places that they describe in the adventures guide, where you've got whatever different realms you could travel to. But either way, that's awesome. I have to
That's
check that out.
phenomenal. Yeah, the fact that it's like an official album put together. So yeah, I would imagine that if you are listening to this, if you have plans to run this or play in it, maybe tell your DM or GM about this album. Have them check it out. And then when they're reading through it, because every DM and GM reads through everything before they run it, of course, perhaps these titles of these tracks might actually have some kind of like hints as to what is to come, what's
light
in
up
your
a
immediate future.
light up a Delve candle, throw this on in the
Yes.
background, have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, man. I am so ready.
So I've actually ordered all of this Spelljammer stuff. It hasn't showed up on my doorstep yet. But I have teased to my players that we could potentially end our current campaign in wild space doing Spelljammery stuff. I figure that I could probably make the BBE end up there for whatever reason. I'm looking for something or trying to imagine something like that, and we could end there. So I've kind of teased that to them, and I don't know, just like getting through it and being more and more excited for it. I think that's what we're gonna do. So really excited for that.
Yeah, that's just phenomenal. Wild space in general. What a fun time.
Awesome. So anything else with Spelljammer that comes to mind?
Not for me.
No, but if the more you guys read, everyone, the more you learn, at us and tell us what cool stuff you've done with it, and we're excited to hear.
So much potential, yeah.
I'm looking forward to every episode of How Not to DM, just talking about all the wild shit that people have put together from Spelljammer books, and just thinking about different ways that it could even work on, say, just places like the Forgotten Realms or Galarian, whatever your canvas is. Because these things that do exist within the Spelljammer realms, they don't have to stay in wild space. Ships crash, things fall down. Just saying.
Oh, did we mention how much the starter pack of Spelljammers was?
Oh,
Oh,
that's a good
we
question.
didn't.
I think that would probably be a
Pull it
good
up.
a thing. I know on D&D Beyond, if you buy it on D&D Beyond, I think it was $49.99 for like the big pack.
Yep, just the adventures in space for $49.99. Yep.
I'm wondering what the
So
So
book
yeah.
would be.
Wizards has a way to find your local store or buy it from Amazon. Local stores prices are going to vary, but on Amazon right now, the whole kit for $42, $41.99.
Heck
That's
yeah,
three
dude.
64-page books, DM screen, and a map. And the map is of the Rock of Brawl, which is an asteroid city that's kind of like center of the astral plane, and that campaign, the Light of Xerxes, where your players will be starting. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Sweet. All right. So if we don't have anything else left for Spelljammer, Mendachi, you have a little
Howdy.
bit of something going on right now. Tell us about Steam.
Yeah. Steam is finally letting you add free stuff easily now. And it's just a breath of fresh air. It's just quality of life increase. So this kind of hit a lot of different I would say journalists like about 2-3 days ago. So basically, whenever you would start up a game, perhaps there's some free aesthetic stuff, or like, oh, you get the Explorers pack for whatever reason, but you didn't realize that you had to hit the button and then it had to verify your version of the game and blah, 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 and do a download. Even though it's not actually downloading anything, it's just adding the license to your copy of the game within your library to say, hey, they get the thing, just give it to them. And also, the other thing is too is that after you launch that game, oh, I just realized I have this stuff I got to close out of the game because if I quote unquote download it, adding the license to the game, then I'm going to have to restart my game, so on and so forth. There's literally no other boxes pop up if you see something that's like free ad. Click it. It's in your library. Cool. It's done. You have the license for it. There's no need to download anything. It's already in the game. So that's really the gist of it. So when you have like a new game that you started, being able to see if there's anything additional that you get for free is going to be right there now. If there's games that are free to play, they're going to be much more easy to actually find, and they will download, like without having to go through all these other dialogue boxes, anything like that. Someone right here, writing from PC Gamer, adds that, and this is in their first paragraph. So if you would like to go and listen to their article, or if you would like to go read it yourself, that is just PC Gamer. It was published 2 days ago by Jonathan Bolding, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. But they write, at long last, you can add a free game or DLC to your Steam account without starting up the installation process for that game. I am ecstatic. I am truly unreasonably excited by this change. The new Add to Library button appears on the Steam desktop client beside free items on the storefront, including free games, free to play games, games that are temporarily free in a giveaway, and free DLC. No longer do you need to deal with the install dialog or worse to get free stuff. So if you've ever just been turned off by, say, downloading a game that was free, or rather just adding it to your library because you know that your Steam client's going to try and download the 47 gig game or whatever the hell while you're trying to do other stuff, and then you forget about it and then you lose it and so on and so forth. That's all done and dealt with. no reason for it. This didn't come ahead of or like after any sort of press release. It's just there now. So it's just better. And you
It,
know what? We need stories like this every once in a while to deal with all the doom and gloom.
it's definitely nice that Steam is being proactive instead of reactive here, because that is
Yeah.
definitely a good change in my opinion. It's a good change.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because like when it would before this, if you wanted to add something to your library, it would force itself, the client, to look through and configure any disk space that you might need in order to install this game. When it's you're not trying to tell it to download it, you're just saying, no, 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 no. I just want to say that I own it now, if you could please. But as soon as you add that to your library, it's like, all right, better get to work. And you're like, no, I'm trying to play video games right now. Like, don't do that. Or maybe you're doing some work and you just had like a 10-minute break or something. um, Now you don't have to worry about that bogging down your system.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Derek, do you have anything on this? Like, I don't know how much of like a gamer you typically are in like the PC side.
I don't own a PC, so I haven't done a ton with Steam. Got Jackbox games on there. That's about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but I
Yeah.
could see how, from a technology perspective, this is very convenient and how it would really change the game for people. So yeah, I'm all for UX, UI updates that make life easier.
I can't agree more. UI changes are always a good thing if they're making things easier. So yeah,
Yeah, imagine that. Just some quality of life for no apparent reason, just it's there now. We didn't need to get yelled at. No one had any problems with it. We
uh,
just did the thing.
our Lord and Savior Gabe has brought
Yeah.
down a nice change for once.
Thanks, Gaben. Now, if you could just get the people that ordered the other Steam Decks or people that are like just getting broken Steam Decks, not broken Steam Deck, that'd be cool. Just
That'd be
saying.
cool. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Anything else on the Steam?
No, not right now. Hopefully it's just good. Whatever comes next, we could just use 2 weeks. 2 weeks of good news.
Awesome.
That'd be
All right.
nice.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that is the show then. Um,
Sweet.
but so yeah, Derek, what do you have coming up? Where again for people who haven't met you, don't know what you're about. Who are you? What do you do? And where can people find you? For people who missed that at the beginning of the show.
So again, my name is Derek. I am host of the How Not to DM podcast, which is a weekly show. Currently in between, not weekly right now, but a weekly show comes out Wednesday, usually 7 a.m. Eastern. That is interviews with people from all around the TTRPG community about their philosophies on running games, good and bad, mistakes that they've made, and triumphs that they've had behind the. Also, we chat about their cool projects, the games they've written, um, podcasts or streams that they run, or anything else. So, yeah, that's a little bit about my show. It really focuses on like trying to not make the same mistakes that other people make, and that being a really good method of learning how to run games. That's really why I started it, and I can say that I have learned a ton and have become a way better DM just from being the person who asks all these questions. So I'm sure everybody who's listening picks up a ton of fun stuff too. The new season is coming out in September. I think I have finally settled on the second week in September, and so let me just pull that up really quick so I can give everybody a date. That will be the 14th of September. You can look out for the season 3 kickoff. So yeah, I've made that official. I've promised the internet now, so I'll go update everything and make sure
You
that I'm
heard
ready
it
to go for
here
that time. But
first.
yeah, heard it here first. I've been doing some interviews when I have some time during this break. So I've got people all ready to go. Episodes all ready to go. So yeah, the 14th of September, 7 a.m. Eastern, noon British Standard Time. That'll be when that drops. And yeah, ton of fun guests that I'm really excited to have everyone hear from. I'm also working on a fun side project with my friend Matthew. He's in my gaming group. So he and I have taken turns running games here and there for our group, and so we're working on a fun one-shot idea and some like supplemental rules to add to your game. They're built for 5e, but they'll work really well for any game that's kind of like roll to success something.
Mhm.
And yeah, they're gonna put a fun, interesting twist on it, and we'll probably release the rules for really cheap. We're working on a one shot to release later on once we've kind of raised some money for some art and maps and stuff. But yeah, that should be really good for anybody who's out there streaming or podcasting who wants to create fun content, or for people who want to run that just for your home games too. So yeah, look for that in the next month or so as well. Matthew's right now on vacation in Alaska. I'm going on vacation at the end of this week. So summer's always tricky with all these trips and stuff that happen, family reunions, whatnot. But yeah, we're mostly done with the rule set and we're that soon. So be on the lookout. You can follow me on Twitter at HN2DM. That's where I'm most active. I'll also post my link tree here really quick. There's a linktree .com/HN2DM, again 5 characters to remember. And you can find our Discord there and everything else if you want to chat. So yeah, hit me up, ask me questions, or listen to my show. Easy to binge. You can find it on YouTube or wherever your podcast. Not to DM.
Awesome. And you will be able to find those links in the descriptions of the episode and on the YouTube once we get that posted up. And I do have to say, perfect timing, because I'm actually moving to Phoenix in September on like that weekend after the 14th. Perfect timing. I'll have
You'll need
plenty
something
of
to
road
listen to
time
while you're sweating, moving all of your furniture.
Yeah. Well, we're taking minimum stuff, so honestly, it's just it's a 25-hour drive.
Yeah.
So I'll
You're
have
from
plenty of
state?
from Iowa to Phoenix. So
Well,
it's
if you
a
need a
long
place
one.
to stay in Utah, I'm here, man.
I don't
guest room.
actually think I passed through Utah.
Ben.
Yeah.
Well, if you
I think
want a
we go
free
south side.
hotel.
Yeah, if I want a free hotel, I can take the around. But
Let me know. If not, I'm not
Awesome.
gonna come help you move. Sorry, but it sounds like a fun time.
it's not. It's horrible. I hate it. Bendachi, what do you got coming up?
Oh man, not moving, not sweating my ass off, and yeah, it's gonna be great. This weekend we continue to probably play some more co-op games. I think we're gonna probably delve more into Monster Hunter Rise this weekend. Then we're gonna continue the Let's Play of Resident Evil 5 and Dead Space over on PFTP_plays at twitch.tv there. If you're ever wondering exactly what's coming up, sometimes things are tentative. I'm starting school in like a week. I swear I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to buckle under pressure. It's going to be completely fine. I can juggle this many plates. I've been doing it forever. It's going to be fine. Anyway, just check my Twitter. That's at only Mendachi. Otherwise, you'll find me here every Tuesday talking to someone I can trick to come onto this podcast. And if you're not listening to anything that I'm doing, you should definitely be listening to Derrick over at How Not to DM. Just a fantastic show with a whole mess of fantastic people, much smarter than me, that have made just as many mistakes as you or I have. And you will learn so much. It will sincerely elevate your game so much. Highly recommend it. Can't recommend it enough. And otherwise, yeah, just I don't know, follow him on Twitter. He posts really cool stuff. You could learn things from
Right.
just watching his posts. It's pretty good.
What are you doing for school, or what are you gonna study?
Behavioral sciences and communication. Yeah. So I'm gonna try and nestle in D&D into behavioral therapy. We'll see. We'll see how that works. That's the pipe dream.
I have some friends who do that and get paid to do it. I'll put you in touch with them.
Ooh. Now that's exciting stuff.
Awesome. I don't know exactly what I'll be doing this week. It just depends on. I made some internet fixes. I personally invested in some internet fixes. So if my internet's working fine, then I will probably be playing Star Citizen because I fell in love with it again. If not, it'll be Hunt Showdown. Just the basic, usual Mr. Green stuff. You can catch me on twitch.tv/Mr. Green Elite. Also on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all the fancy places, just Mr. Green. So I think does everyone have everything out on the table that they want out on the table?
I think so.
Just make sure to check out these two. Follow their Twitch pages. Check out their streams. It sounds like a lot of fun stuff going on all the time. So between Mendachi and Mr. Green Elite and Danny, I'm sure one of them is doing something that you can check out when you're bored.
We should probably
Yeah,
plug
that's
Danny
true.
K too.
Yeah.
Danny K on Twitch.
He's all right.
He gave up the next to nothing for a new page. This is a whole new Twitch page. So go check out his Twitch too. He plays Hunt Showdown every once in a while when he's not pretending to have a girlfriend in another state. Stuff like that. Real girlfriend. Yeah. So that's gonna wrap up the show this week. Thanks for watching and listening. Your time with us is always appreciated. Of course, we're not just interested in your time. We want to hear from you as well. Drop a comment or tweet at us, letting us know your thoughts on anything we talk about or answering the question of the week. That question of the week was, what is your favorite TTRPG monster or villain? If you missed any part of the
Let's
show...
steal that question of the week.
Oh, absolutely. Have at it.
It's a good idea.
No, for real. I thought of it when I was like, I'm gonna ask the guys what we want to do for a question of the week, and then it just popped in my head because we were doing another D&D show or another TTRPG show. So I stole the option from you, and I apologize. I'm sorry. I should have asked, but yeah. If you missed any other part of the show and you want to take us on the go, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found. If you want to catch us live, you can find us on Twitch, usually at 7 p.m. every Tuesday. If you guys like what we do, drop a like or subscribe, ring that bell. It helps out a ton on YouTube. Don't forget to check out our giveaways this week. We don't have a giveaway this week. We probably should have done one last week. We'll get that fixed next week. I didn't change this part of Danny's spiel. Yeah, the
blame
best
Danny.
thing,
He's not here.
yeah, we're blaming Danny for all of this.
His fault.
For vacation. Yeah. But the number one thing you can do, the absolute number one thing you can do is tell a friend about the show. So, until next week, I'm going to do Danny again. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep fighting that good fight, and we will talk to you again next week. Bye. Bye.
Do.